Hey, oh, hey, oh. Hey, oh, hey, oh. Hello and welcome. Welcome back to Reclaim Within. I am your host, Ash, and I am so glad that you are here. My prayer for you today is that you learn to stop fighting with the parts of yourself that you were taught to distrust, that you find your way slowly and tenderly back to wholeness. Not the wholeness that looks polished and certain from the outside, but the real, messy, human, divine acceptance of all parts of you in all stages of your existence. The kind that has room for absolutely all of you. That kind of wholeness. And today we are going to dive nice and deep into something that has been really pulsating in my awareness for half of a decade. And it is so beautifully simple, yet not easy, as all the best wisdom is. And it is ego. Ego, you are not the enemy. At this point in my journey of this life, I've been in enough rooms and I've read enough books and I've sat with enough humans to know that the demonizing of the ego is its own kind of trap in a way. I have traversed many different realms in the spiritual world as well as in just the day-to-day. And I have come back to this understanding through a book, actually, that genuinely stopped me in my tracks. And it's something I've been really, really working towards embodying for, like I said, half a decade now. But the book that stopped me in my tracks is called Return of the Bird Tribes by Ken Carey. I picked it up and I did not want to put it down. It awakened something deeply ancestral in me. It awoken some remembrance that was bigger than this lifetime, something that already knew what the pages were saying. Like it felt like everything I was reading, I already knew. And yet at the exact same time, I needed the reminder so deeply. The reminder is that our mission here on this earth, in these bodies, is to be in service to our soul, aligned with creation, in harmony with our truest nature. And that's it, the whole thread. What struck me the most in this book was that it clarified about the ego's actual role. Because here's the thing that I don't hear talked about enough. Your ego is not your enemy. Somebody else's ego is not your enemy. The ego is not the enemy. It is actually a beautiful, important part of us, and it is a part of our wholeness. I would love to actually even say that it could be seen as a tool even. And like any other tool, the question is in who is wielding it and what is it being actually used for? So most of us are somewhere on a very large spectrum with this question or this idea. On one end, there are probably many, many people being completely run by their ego without having any awareness that that's happening, without even knowing it. These are people who are just living in complete reactivity, unconsciously going through the motions, grasping for control, for validation, for rightness. And it's not a good, bad, right, or wrong thing. They're just allowing for themselves to be constantly identified with that ego space. And so it's a moving through life on autopilot, which means defending, deflecting, and wondering why nothing really ever feels like enough. A friend of mine once said, filling the holes to feel whole. That is a very ego-driven identity form. And none of this is a character flaw. It's what happens, though, when the ego has been left in the identity's driver's seat without the guidance from the soul, which is why it matters so much. So on the other end of this very large, wide spectrum, and I'm sure there's so much nuance in this, so I'm just, for time's sake, we're just going to go to the side, one side of the spectrum to the other. And this other side lives inside of a lot of maybe spiritual spaces. And there is a tendency in a lot of those spaces to actually consciously or unconsciously, I'm not really totally sure, but make the ego the villain. So there's a lot of speak around transcending the ego or eradicating the ego or rising above the ego, or don't look over there into that shadow. Just give it up to God. Don't even pay attention to that ego. Just rise above it. Just go directly towards the light, right? It's a tendency to kind of bypass. And I do understand the impulse here. I really do. By rejecting the ego, it's just another form of fragmentation. So you cannot heal by completely amputating it. So you can't find that wholeness. You can only actually find true wholeness and healing by integrating it. So neither extreme will actually serve us. Neither one truly leads us home. So what I have been practicing, what has become something I return to again and again and again as a sacred practice in my life, is one of the oldest and most widely used technologies throughout all of history. You all ready for this? Do I have you on the edge of your seat? It's the technology of prayer. And this specific prayer has become a consistent ally for me, a consistent honoring of my human experience here. And it is a simple reorientation that I offer myself whenever I feel fear creeping in, or whenever I notice my ego pulling me somewhere that doesn't necessarily feel aligned. When I feel my identity fusing with the ego to keep me safe versus actually truly allowing myself to sit in myself and become aligned. Here's what I do. And I got this from the book, or inspired by the book. So go read it if you feel inspired. Here's the prayer. I pause, I breathe, and I say, ego, I am grateful for your service. And I need you to remember that you are here to be in service to my soul. You are here to be in service to the Creator, not to guide me by fear, but to follow the wisdom of my soul, the wisdom of my spirit. That's it. No battle, no banishment, just a gentle and honest redirect. Because here's the thing, our ego is just trying to protect us. It truly is. It's just working from an older map, one drawn by fear and survival rather than soul and purpose. So when I acknowledge it and I thank it as a part of me and remind the ego of its rightful place, something truly just settles. The grip loosens, and almost like magic, I come back to my center. The ego oftentimes wants us to kind of fix it and figure it out and make it happen and be seen and understand. And it can get really anxious, or it can get really depressed. It can get really stuck in wherever its orientation towards the identity is. So being able to say this prayer and take some big breaths can connect the body and the mind to the soul and allow for there to be a shift. Now let's speak a little bit about fear. Have you noticed that there is so much fear moving through the collective right now? I feel it, and I'm sure that you feel it too. And fear is exactly the kind of emotional weather that sends our egos into overdrive, scrambling for control, for certainty, for solid ground. I was in getting my nails done the other week, and even my nail tech was saying how scary it is right now and how fearful she is, and how the only thing we can do right now is turn to the Creator, which is interesting because that is true. And when we find the bigger certainty, like when we hold on to the certainty that the Creator has us and is holding us, that God is holding us, then we can actually drop the control that we think we have over what's right in front of us. There was actually a study done recently where some scientists took one group of people skydiving and then had the other group of people run on a treadmill. And the group that was skydiving gave off this very potent and pungent sweat. The scientists who had studied it said that the sweat had signaled fear and actually had created a shift in the entire group's heart rate, and everyone's cortisol levels spiked. Whereas the people on the treadmill never gave off that same signal. I wish I could remember exactly where I read this, but my point is that we are actually insanely affected by each other's fear. We collectively affect one another. And if we are affected by each other's signals of fear, then could we too be affected by each other's signals of calm, peace, trust, and soul connection? Speaking out this prayer is how I find my way back, especially because it's easy sometimes to get caught up in overwhelm or in the unknown. The prayer helps me come back to knowing that there's something greater that I'm connected to, and that my soul, aligned with creation, is what leads. Not the fear, not the grasping, not the noise. We are not here to accumulate more of that. We are not here to dominate. We are actually not even here to just be right all the time. That is what happens, though, when we over-identify with our ego. We accumulate more than we need. We identify with what we look like in the external world versus how we feel on the internal world. I truly believe, and in this book, it talks all about it, we are here to live in service to something much, much larger and much more beautiful than the ego's ambitions. So when we allow for the ego to take its rightful place, because the ego is really good at actually helping us get things done, and it is really helpful at helping us take action and be able to be provided for and have food on our tables and a roof over our head, like that is all because of the ego's identity with self. It's really good at being scrappy and figuring things out and problem solving. But when we actually allow for the ego to be guided by the soul, when we connect it to something bigger than us, the ego then becomes our ally. And that's when it becomes the collaborator and a vehicle for presence in this physical world, rather than a wall between us and the divine, or between us and the ego. There is a very real power that lives here when we can connect our ego with our soul, not in silencing the ego, but in truly letting it lead with love and with wisdom. There is a place that you will connect to the more you actually reconnect yourself with, okay, ego, you're here to serve the soul, and reorient yourself back. That's where your wholeness lives. And I believe that is exactly what this earth is asking of all of us right now. I believe that the more of us that allow for our egos to not be in the driver's seat, to not let the things that trigger us or that push us outside of our comfort zones, if we don't let those take over, we learn to connect to our movement, breath, and sound. I will over and over again, movement, breath, and sound. Being able to move your bodies, slow, soft twists if you're feeling activated, Put your hand on your stomach, take some really deep breaths in and out, make some sounds, let yourself actually sigh, release, whatever it might be. The more you come back to that, the more you'll actually be able to remember, okay, this isn't all up to me. I am not the only one in the driver's seat here. I am a collaborator. I am in co-creation with life. And to be in co-creation with life is to remember that your consciousness is actually vast and infinite and connected to something so much bigger than yourself. One of my favorite definitions of God is that God is the mystery. God is the mystery it's so undefinable. There is no definition for, and it is in every single cell and every single being and every single organism on this planet. It is like a living life force energy that we can all tap into at all times. It is a frequency that you and I and everyone can tap into. But we have to remember that these unconscious places inside of us are also a part of us too. And so we have to take time to lovingly reconnect ourselves with the bigger picture and with understanding that we don't know it all. We can never know it all. That is the great mystery. It's part of it. I hope that you can take this with you and remind yourself in those hard moments to breathe, move, create sound, but also to take this with you. I hope you use this prayer in your everyday life. I hope you see this when you witness somebody else going through a hard time, or you're dealing with somebody who's maybe you can tell that they're very activated inside that ego identity. Instead of trying to combat them or come at them or try to, preach or teach, just remind yourself to be the model in the world. Because if fear can be spread through what we're holding in our bodies, I believe that gratitude and connection to divinity also can be spread. So come back to yourself, even when you see someone outside of you having a hard time, and connect and say, okay, ego, please serve my soul. How can I best show up with the most honor and dignity and respect to this person in my life who is having a really hard time, or who I believe is making my life difficult at this moment? How do I show up with so much more love? What would my soul do? What would I do if I were so connected to divinity and I let myself kind of open up and be in that giving, a loving, connected place? What would my soul do if it was connected so deeply to my ego that the action I take is in service to the greater good of everybody around me? And I believe that is also something that can be contagious. I truly, deeply do. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting me and spending this time with me. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. And I love it when you reach out to me. I love it when you comment or you message me anywhere, Substack, Instagram, message. It just warms my heart so much to know that this creative expression is something that is rippling out into the world. So if you do feel called to go deeper with me, I would really love to have you join me for my monthly live Zoom calls at the end of every month, where we gather and we work towards reclaiming within together. I'm weaving in more astrology these days, which I'm really, really enjoying, because it really does give you this beautiful blueprint of your soul's map. And it's fun to get to dive in with people and learn where they're at right now and what's going on for them right now, and be able to connect them with their own internal architecture and their own archetypes and bring that language alive. Because gosh, none of us can do this alone. We are all so on this journey together, right? So you can join those calls by becoming a paid subscriber to my Substack, and we will be diving into more astrology on those calls. But I also like to leave them open for Q&A, and we can talk about what's going on currently, as well as the topics of the last couple weeks, months. I will also be having my Building Inner Kingdoms course be coming out sometime in the next year. I'm working on revamping it, and I'm putting a lot more into it, and I'm breaking it down to a bit more bite-sized pieces so that you can feel really successful. But I have spent, the last 16 years just in my own unraveling and building and learning, I'm taking everything I've learned, every certification I've ever gone through, all the all the goodie, and I'm pulling it all together to try to deliver it to you so that you don't have to do all the hard work that I have gone through to get to where I am. And maybe it happens a little quicker for you. So many, many blessings to you. Thank you so much.